Okay, so I've just finished Picard, and like a lot of you, you're probably thinking, this Soong Jr. character is clearly Lore, right? Like, that's the only thing that makes logical sense right now. And let's look at it using a couple clips and previous episodes from The Next Generation. Now, I've been doing my rewatch of The Next Generation alongside watching Picard. I will do a massive review once I get to the end of it all. However, last night I was watching an episode in Season 4 entitled Clues. What I think is funny about this is the opening shot of Clues is very similar to the first shot we see of the Simps on this new planet. It's almost identical, both enjoying the recreational activity, yoga martial arts style, but what's more interesting is that entire episode is about Data lying to the rest of the crew because they were discovered by an alien species that didn't want to be discovered and didn't want anyone to know about them. So they erase everyone's memory, but they can't erase Data's memory. Therefore, he has to lie to them for the sake of the crew. But the whole crew were like,
whatever it was, it seems something Data didn't want to tell us about.
I have never known Data to tell a lie. And yet.
So the whole thing I think about that is it's a little clue to the fact that there's massive lies going on within this planet. The instant that this guy is introduced, the first thing that he says is,
I take it my face looks familiar.
I feel as if I'm looking at Data.
Data if he'd gotten old and gone soft.
So the fact that he is talking about getting soft and old makes me feel like not a comparison to Data, but a comparison to who he once was.
Must be disturbing. I know it is for me.
Therefore, he used to be just like Data or Lore, a rigid android and stuff, but now has found himself in this current version. The next thing he says is so vital here. He refers to Soong as you would if he was your dad, but he says,
my father had me, but he created Data.
He says, my father had me, and then he created Data. I'm going to pull up a couple clips from the episode known as Brothers, in which Data, Lore, and the original Dr. Soong have a reunion as he's close to death and wants to see his boys again. A key tell in this episode is when Lore, pretending to be Data, calls him father.
Thank you, father.
Call me father.
That's when Soong suddenly realizes, wait, Lore refers to me as father.
I'm dying.
Dying from what, sir?
That's a massive clue in itself. The other part of this is the fact that we know that Lore was always first and then he created Data. And this is something that, because Lore understands emotions and can process them, it plays on his mind.
Would have proven myself worthy to you if you'd just given me a chance. But it was easier just to turn your back and build your precious Data.
Now, what I think is funny about the fact that Lore understands and can manipulate emotions because he can have them is that we've seen him be sincere to get an end goal.
I know how hard it's been. You'd be surprised, Data.
Which I think is very funny because he's clearly using Agnes to his advantage here. This is where my theory comes in about the defunct android, or, one that ages or something like that. At some point in time, Maddox has brought back Lore because he can't get a hold of Data's cells because Data's been completely destroyed, whereas Lore was only disassembled and sent out. You can collect those bits and Lore's been reassembled previously.
Shame on you, Agnes. You put out a small, bright candle. Not yet. I do bodies. Bruce was a substrates man. Recently, I've regained my interest in mind transfer.
And then we're just going to look at this key final thing he says, and I'm going to talk a little bit about his attitudes and how that matches up perfectly with Lore.
Look at them. They've never met anyone like you before. That granite face, wisdom and integrity etched into every line.
Now, what do you mean they've never seen anyone like him before? Talking about his age and the experience and stuff. Aren't you of a similar age, and so on and so forth? Unless, of course, you are not actually human. That is what I'm thinking, right? All of these little subtle signs come together to basically tell us this is Lore, and this is all part of a massive plan that he has had running for ages. Ages and ages and ages. Now, let's look at the attitude. Every way that he refers and talks to Picard is very undermining.
Admiral Jean-Luc Picard,
retired.
and bitter.
And the Federation will listen to me.
No, they won't.
This is classic Lore. So bitter and petty and jealous and stuff. It's just seeping out in a way that he knows he needs to play a role right now, but he's fully capable of doing that, like I've shown in this episode.
I am not less perfect than Lore.
I am not less perfect than Lore.
Lore has always considered himself the actual son, right? Data was just a copy. He's identical. He was made in the same image of Lore, essentially, right? Which was in the image of all of the Soongs, because as we know, they all look fairly similar anyway. Which means, yes, it could be a son, but I think for the purpose of this storyline, if you're gonna flip things up and make it interesting, what if the Simps are just as much of a problem as the Romulans are? Because it's not down to the many people, it's down to the few that manipulate the rest of society. And I know they've said they've wanted to make Picard a lot more about modern politics and relate that into things and stuff. So, you know, this all makes sense, right? Debunking a little bit of some of the kickbacks and stuff that you're going to say. Look, I understand that Lore was completely disassembled, blah, blah, blah. Data was completely blown up, but apparently you can recreate like other androids, blah, 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 from one of his cells. So they've thrown across all of these contradictory things anyway. Yes, I know we've had a lot of random family members pop up when we didn't think they would across all of Star Trek. But, like I'm saying, there's so much little clues here and it's all too perfect. I personally thought we were just going to get to the planet and there'd be an older version of Data because he recovered his files and wanted to put himself in a body that was more appeasing to people around him, because if he was going to seek out people like Riker and Picard and Geordi and so on and so forth, he'd want to more humanly age just like them, because that's Data's ultimate goal, right? So it strikes me very funny that we get to the planet and we get something similar to that, but guess what? It's not Data, it's this random guy that I believe he's called like Altan Soong?
Altan Inigo Soong.
Like alternative, the alter ego. It's funny that he doesn't even mention Lore. He doesn't say, oh, Soong created his sons in my image. He says that Data was created in his image, right?
You were the first. You meant as much to me as Data ever did. But you were unstable.
My father had me, but he created Data.
But it was easier just to turn your back and build your precious Data.
In fact, he never let me forget.
That's it. That's all I've got to say. It's a quick theory. Leave your comments and stuff in the replies. I wanted to keep this short and sweet. Yeah. Peace out. Live long and prosper, because we're in tough times. And this is now the new greeting. I don't care, because we can't shake hands anymore. So this is it.